Tom, I think that you are on mute right now, so no one can hear you.
Sticky finger, my goodness. Thank you. So I was just saying, my name is Tom Spence. I use the pronouns he, him, and I'm very excited to see so many of you have joined us today for our fourth iteration of the main event. We have about 140 folks on the call with us today, so thank you all for taking the time to be here. As a note, today's session is being recorded and will be shared with the group following the session. Before we begin today, it's important that we acknowledge the traditional land on which we are virtually gathering today. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and most recently, the Mississaugas of the Credit River. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. We also recognize that many of our participants today may be joining from well beyond the lands where U of T operates. I would encourage us all to take this moment when we are gathering virtually from across the region to learn more about the Indigenous peoples on whose traditional lands you are working from today. June is National Indigenous Peoples History Month, a time for all Canadians, but particularly the many of us who are settlers, to reflect upon, learn the history and strengths, as well as the oppression of our First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. Today, we are going to be discussing Microsoft Teams and how to make the most of it for your event. By now, many of us have gotten very familiar with this platform for things like Teams meetings and conference calls, but today we are going to show you how to use Microsoft Teams to both help you plan your event and how to utilize Teams to actually host an event. To do that, we're going to break today's session into 3 segments. Part 1 will consist of training on using Teams before an event, in the planning process through things like team meetings, annotating a floor plan, and co-authoring documents. And part 2 will be on how to actually host an event on Teams, and we'll cover topics like how to use channels as breakout rooms or for discussions and how to conduct live polls. Finally, we'll have an open Q&A with you, our audience, to answer your questions. So if you do have questions that come up over the course of the presentation today, please save them for the Q&A segment. We will ask you to enter them in the chat at that time, and we will do our best to answer as many questions as possible. Joining me today in this presentation, I'm very pleased to say, is Kathleen McLeod. Kathleen is the Services Engagement Coordinator with ESS and EASY here at the University of Toronto, and she's on hand to answer our questions today. Thank you, Kathleen, for taking the time to join us and making yourself available.
Thanks for having me.
Wonderful. And leading our presentation today is Renee Gonsalves. Renee is the Senior Manager for Modern Classroom Experience from Microsoft Canada. Renee is here to share with us her expertise and will show us how all of us can better utilize more of the features that Microsoft Teams has to improve our efficiency, but also our guest experience. So with that, Renee, I'm going to turn this over to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for jumping on this morning and joining us. You'll see that I do have my video on right now. I will turn that off in a bit as I share my screen and start to kind of explore Teams. As Tom said, first off, my pronouns are she, her, apologies. I have been working with Microsoft for the last 3 years in the education space. Originally with just K-12 and more recently in the higher ed space. So we've been helping educators and education folk work through how these tools can support in the classroom more traditionally, but also how they can support management and leadership and departments and everybody who has some part in working in education. Today's really interesting because it's a little bit different. As you can imagine, the last few months we have been working away on distance learning and supporting folks who are trying to adopt new distant learning practices. So this was refreshing because not that we're tired of distance learning, but the idea of doing something around event building and how the same tools that we use in the classroom can support different areas in education. So I'm excited to get started. I want to be clear off the bat that you will not end today's less than an hour session of perfectly mastering Teams. Today is more of the art of the possible. I hope to inspire you with some of the opportunities and features that are available. And hopefully you see some of them and they click and they make you think that this is a tool that could support the work that you do. So that's the goal of today. By all means, if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, or we can hang on to them until later in the presentation. If they are questions about, how can I find this button? By all means, you can ask them, but a lot of that stuff is really, really easy to search and to find. Like I said, today's more of the art of the possible. So I'm gonna hopefully not go too fast, but try and show you some of the best parts of these applications. And with that, I'm gonna say goodbye with my video for a second here, and I am going to share my screen. I'm going to minimize that. So right now, I'm hopeful that you can all see my screen. This is Microsoft Teams. It's great to know, I know Tom just said that many of you have been using Teams in a variety of ways, and whether that be for collaborating with your colleagues, whether that be in an educational sense with courses or just within your departments, that's fantastic. I am going to start with a little bit of a elementary intro so that everybody's on the same page, and then we're going to dive into some fun things. Off the bat, Microsoft Teams is an application that is part of the Office 365 suite. So if you don't already have Teams on your computer, it's as easy as going to office.com and signing in. From office.com, you'll see all the applications that you have available to you, and one of them will be Teams. You can either use Teams online, which is what I'm doing today, or you can use the desktop version, so the downloaded one. Today, I'm showing you Teams online, mainly because I'm using a fake demo, and that is signed in on my web browser, and my actual personal Renee Teams account is what I'm using to be on this call with you today. So I'm signed in as two different places. I do recommend the downloaded desktop version. It has a few other features that the online one doesn't have, but they're generally very similar. So when we start today, what we're looking at is kind of our dashboard. I like to call Teams, or kind of compare it to your NASA Control Center. This is where you can access and virtually do almost anything that you need to do with your online tools. So if you are using OneDrive or your other applications, if you're using OneNote, if you're having meetings, whatever it is that you do using Office, you can do it all from within Teams. Only about 3 years ago was Teams created. So a lot of the folks on my literal team went through the same challenges of digital transformation and of adopting this tool, and stopping using Skype and using Outlook a little bit less, and email, and trying to bring that all into this space. And I can confidently say that it really has made a difference. My inbox thanks me for using Teams every day, because I have fewer and fewer reply all threads of emails, and a lot of less stuff bogged down in my inbox, because Teams allows us for really quick, instant communication, instant collaboration. It's easy to find things. I know where stuff is. I don't have to be sending or receiving hundreds of emails anymore. So that's excellent. What I'm looking at right now would be that sort of our main dashboard here. If I were in the higher ed space, and you can see there's a couple different things on the screen right now, I might teach a couple courses. So you'll see there's an education course, there's another course here. Maybe I'm doing research. Maybe I am part of an event. Perhaps I am a speaker. Perhaps I am part of a planning event. Maybe I am just like you, who work in a department that hosts a lot of events. I will say, and I apologize, I didn't get overly creative with my event example today. The demo that we're doing is really just going to be about this conference, a hypothetical conference. So you'll see I have two Teams spaces here. One's for a live event, and one is for the planning. And so as a user of Teams, I might have a whole bunch of different communities or different teams here that I know I can go in and access people, share files, have meetings, stay organized. And these two spaces are the ones that we're going to focus on today. To start, I'm going to go into our conference planning team. Now, quickly, I just want to run down what we're looking at when we're inside of a team. And The navigation is going to be down your left-hand side. This is what we call the Me space, ME, because it has everything to do with you and your usage of Teams. So this is your activity. It's going to give you a little heads up on things that have happened, what's new. And then your chat. Chat is fantastic for quick touch points with one or two individuals. If you want to quickly have an audio or video call with somebody, if you want to say, hey, where'd you put that file? I can't find it. Or, what time's lunch? You can really easily chat with folks in a safe space. And I say safe in that the Office 365 suite predominantly is stored in Canada and on Canadian servers, keeping your files in a private, safe place. The next one down the side here is Teams. And this is where we can see all of our teams, which we're going to pop into shortly. We also have assignments. So this is an education tenant that you guys are using, which means you will see assignments. If you're not someone who's going to use assignments, we're going to skip over that today. You also see your calendar. Your calendar is your Outlook calendar. So anything that is in my Outlook calendar will appear here and vice versa. Again, making Teams that sort of one-stop shop. So I can jump on here at the beginning of the day. It automatically opens with my computer and I can check my calendar. I can see what's happened that's new in my Teams groups, in my chats. Call, pretty self-explanatory. It lets you make calls using Teams, replaces that sort of Skype functionality if you were familiar with that. And then files is your online files. So you can grab files from your personal OneDrive, which is your Microsoft Cloud space, Teams, or collaborative files. You can see here there's different, it tells you where these are. So I should start by saying that I am signed in today as a faculty named Alan DeYoung. So you'll see Alan's OneDrive is my own private space, or I have course material in shared spaces. If you are also using other forms of cloud storage, you can actually bring those into Teams too, again, making it that one-stop shop. So you can bring in your Google Drive or your Dropbox or whatever it is, all into one place. All right, and that's down our side here. What's fantastic is that you can also add some other apps and customize your own dashboard here. So if you are a group of people who are using Shifts, you can put Shifts there or Planner so that you can regularly check in. So you can add those as well. Now back on over into our conference planning team. What we see when we're inside of a team are three main pieces. On the left are our channels. So we have our divisions of work. Now, whatever you want to do with Teams, you can, in theory. You are able to make any channels. You can organize your work as you see fit. It's one of my favorite parts of this tool is that it is super customizable. It is a tool meant to work for you. So you can decide how you'd like to use it. In this case, I have created channels, as you can see here, attendee communication, financials, marketing, planning meetings. You can go ahead and make these divisions of work however you'd like. This is our channel pane. Up across the top, we have our We space. So contrary to the Me space, which is your own personal navigation, the We space is the menu that everybody in this team will see. Typically, we're going to post things up here that are so important to our work, to our project, that we're looking at them regularly. So if it's a budget that we need to update basically every morning, or if it is meeting notes that we check every day, then putting them up here as a tab and customizing this menu is a great way to do that. In this example, I have a work back schedule and a sponsorship and vendors OneNote, and I will go into those momentarily. You can also customize these tabs for every channel. So you'll see as we go through them, I don't have anything custom just yet, but we can go ahead and add to these menus for each one. Okay, so this again, the We space, our channels and our Me space, and then right here is where all the magic happens. This is our collaborative space right there in the middle. Okay, I'm just quickly checking in on our chat here to make sure that everybody can see what we're looking at. Hopefully everything looks good. Tom, I invite you to hop off mute if there's any major issues and just yell. Okay, so what we can see here is that like I said, I promise you can make your own channels. It's as simple as clicking on these dots and hitting add a channel. Now, perhaps we want to add a channel called sponsorship. We can add descriptions. We can make channels private or we can make them standard. A private channel will actually allow us to only put a few folks into the team. So we can have this large collaborative environment, but if the budget piece or the financials piece or the sponsorship negotiations is only with a few folks or only accessible, should be accessible to a few folks, then we can make it a private channel. And in doing that, you're going to see that we can now customize who of our larger group should be invited in. So I can go ahead and simply put, because this is all on my same tenant, I can quickly add a few folks here who should be privy to this info. And then that's that. Now you'll notice I've created a new channel in our channel column here. That is a locked channel, so only those who have access to it can see it. And then otherwise, everything stays the same. We can share files, host meetings in this space, have conversations in this space. The other thing I'm going to point out is when you click on the ellipses, and I can't stress this enough, there are ellipses or the dots all over the place. There's one over here, there's one over here, there's one over here. I strongly encourage you to click on them. If anything you're looking for is probably behind ellipses. All good things live back there. So when we click on the ellipses next to our channel, we can click manage the team, next to our team title there. And this is where we can go ahead and add members. We can manage pending requests. If it's a private team, we can decide who gets to join. We can make some changes to our channels and to our settings. What's great about this is that we can also not only just add members within our organization, but we can add vendors and sponsors and partners and other folks into the community as well. And they will have some restrictive settings, but we can also definitely add them too. Okay. So as we go through this, I'm going to talk a little bit about our We space up at the top. Now, the first one you're going to see is post, and that is going to be this nice big space here where we can really easily post anything. So I can simply start by saying, hi group, looking forward to this year. I can also do something, as it says here, @mention. So if I have tasks to give out, I can say, hey, @Patty, please review the new OneNote. Copy any old material. And so what we're doing is we're starting these little conversation blocks, and now anybody can hit reply into one of these topics and kind of have a conversation based on one of these things. So Patty could go ahead and say, hey, Alan, went ahead and did that, thanks. The other thing we can do besides the general conversation here is click on that little A on the bottom, and we can actually post more announcements, so more formal things. So we can say, if this is a planning committee of 80 people, which I think that seems like a lot to me, but if it's a really big group, we can make things really important and bold, and we can say kickoff meeting, or perhaps we have a channel with our volunteers, and there are hundreds of volunteers, so we can say volunteer meeting Friday. We can go ahead and add subtitles and a bunch of information. In this information space, we can also add links. So if I go ahead and grab a link here, that link's going to post at the bottom there. We can use all kinds of editing tools. And what I love maybe most about this is the opportunity to either post this as a reply, so anyone can reply, making this an open forum. So if we say volunteer meeting Friday, folks can come on and say, well, what if I can't make it? Can somebody reshare the link? I'm missing something. Very collaborative. Or we can use this more as a bulletin board. And so I can write only me and the moderators can reply. I don't need all my volunteers rambling here. So I'm going to make this a locked down post, and I'm going to post it up for everyone to see. Another fantastic feature is the post in multiple channels. So this is going to go maybe in our general channel, but really I'd like to also make sure that it's going to go in other places. So perhaps I have another team of volunteers. Perhaps I have another space. So maybe I want to say attendee communication. I'd like to post that there as well. Or I'd like to put it in the planning meeting so that the folks organizing our meetings know that we have a volunteer meeting and that they should not double book that time. So now this post is going to go across into other spaces. So that's just an example. It is a great engagement tool for allowing us to hit like or smiles or hearts or whatever to see that people are reacting and people see this. And this is part of our general space. We can also post videos here. I'm going to point out that in our planning meeting section, you'll see there's my post as well. But I've also scheduled a call. And this is one of the most important parts, obviously, of planning events is the opportunity to sync. So as Alan, I've gone ahead and scheduled a call in this channel, so I can host calls in different places. The benefit of that means any meeting notes taken during this call, any recordings taken during this call, will also live in this channel and in this space, letting people know that it's really easy to come back and find what they're looking for. So I will go ahead and click into my meeting here. You'll see as the organizer, I have the ability to edit it. I can customize my meeting options, making folks attendees, letting me be the only presenter, lots of different options there. And I can join the meeting. See me there for a second. I'm going to mute because I'm in a call, a little bit of Teamception here. I'm going to hit join, and now from my meeting, and if you are familiar with Teams, you may know a lot of these features already, but we have the opportunity to record. So I'm going to start recording this meeting, which is a great way to take notes. It's going to give a privacy notice to everybody, which I will dismiss. I'm also going to be able to show meeting notes and hit take notes. Now this is going to allow, unless we've said otherwise, everybody to take notes, which is awesome because it means folks can contribute if they'd like. So we can say brainstorm and we can have different sections, notes.
Renee,
Another section, yeah.
do you mind just slowing down just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I can certainly do that. Just as a reminder, though, I know it does seem like a lot, and especially for those folks who are taking notes and wanting to remember all of these facts, I will most definitely give you resources on where and how to learn about this after. So if you're missing buttons, but I as well, I definitely can slow down. So a bit of a recap. What we've gone ahead and done is we've joined a meeting, and I'll go back and show you how to plan meetings as well. But once we've joined the meeting, everything in our little bottom box here, again, the ellipses has all the magical stuff behind it. And this is where we're going to find things like recording, meeting notes, meeting details, different stuff. The raise hand feature is, as you imagine, if somebody raises their hand if they have a question. So you can raise your hand or put your hand back down. And then the chats, this is sort of what we're using right now in our own meeting, in our own session here, where people can ask questions. So what I've gone ahead and done is I've started to record our meeting, and I've hit meeting notes. And this is where we can all start to take some notes. Again, there's some customized features here, which is great. We can continue to use the @mention even in our notes. So if we have action items, I can @mention Alfonso to say that, you know, this is an action item for him. And then when we're done our meeting, we've said what we needed to say, I will simply hang up. And you'll notice automatically off the bat that a new tab has come up here at the top of my planning meeting channel called meeting notes, and that's going to automatically show up. That means anybody can go in, anyone who's part of this channel, click on the menu, and we'll see the title of every meeting that we have going forward in this channel, along with the divided sections from that meeting and the notes for each section. And that will automatically be there. Back in our posts area, you'll see that that was the call we had scheduled. There was a couple replies here that people had mentioned they couldn't make it or they could. And you'll notice two things have come up underneath the meeting. One is those notes are now accessible directly under the meeting, although, like I said, they're also up here. And the recording. So it says recording has stopped and it's currently saving the recording. So when this is ready, it'll actually post the video recording right here of that meeting. Or sorry, in this case, we didn't share anything. It would be audio, but it would capture video, it would capture screen shares, anything like that, and you'd be able to see that right here as well. So that should take just a couple minutes, and then that recording will be available. And all of this will stay. Now, if this meeting or if anything in your team is particularly important, you can imagine that we start to see a lot of stuff in these collaborative spaces. So things you can see, we have all kinds of posts here. If something is particularly important, and if you know you really want to make sure that this website is something that you like to have handy, hovering over the post and clicking on, once again, those ellipses, you can save this message. And that is going to save it under your initials here or your picture. So when I click on that, I'll be able to click the saved icon, and this will show me a little section here of all my saved messages. It's taken a second. It hasn't even saved that one yet. But that's where those will show up. So again, that's the ellipses and save if something particularly important you'd like to flag. However, it is somewhat, or rather, I find it quite organized. So all of my planning meetings will be here. All of my meeting notes will be in the meeting notes section, nicely organized automatically. I can add new pages for each meeting, or I can just add new sections for each meeting. And that's how that space will work. So pausing for a minute, heading over here. Oh, excellent. I see folks answering each other's questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Okay, so back on up to our general channel. I know we're popping around. We're just sort of showing again what's possible here. We do have a couple files already pinned in our general channel. One of those, we're going to look at the sponsorship one first, is a OneNote notebook. Now, if you're familiar with OneNote, OneNote is basically a digital binder. So anytime you may have previously had a 3-ring binder with hundreds of pages and little plastic dividers from Staples, this is going to be that replicate. So I'm going to make this a bit bigger, but remember, we're still working within Teams. I've just expanded using the arrow over here. And now you'll see I have sections and I have pages. So this is obviously a brand new notebook, but I can go ahead and add additional sections. So I can say vendor contracts. I can then have pages within each section. You'll get the little color dividers there. I can add floor plans. The difference between a OneNote notebook and potentially working in Word is that OneNote lets you do almost anything. There's no structure, there's no format. We don't necessarily print from OneNote. OneNote is really a hodgepodge of information and modalities that we can use. So working in OneNote, of course, we can type. So if I wanted to add a page here, I can say possible vendors, and we can just start typing a list. I can also type over here because there's no rules in OneNote. What we can also do back in our floor plan page is add pictures, obviously, as you can see. So I've copied a picture right here. And then I can head on over to my Draw tab. And I can grab a pen or a highlighter. I can grab any color if I'd like. And then I can go ahead and draw directly on the screen. So I can say, no, we're actually not going to have these ones, but we are going to have a separate section out here. Now, if you're using Teams not on the web, which I recommend doing, you'll actually get a few other features, including a ruler, which is really quite nice. So we can use our highlighting ones, and these are going to be maybe our premium sponsors, and we can start to work through this. Now, if I was in a meeting, I could also show my screen, much like we're doing right now, and we could actually have our meeting, record our meeting, share this screen, and then keep that recorded meeting stored within our Teams space so that we can always go back and remember all the good ideas we came up with. So that's one way of working in OneNote within Teams. Now, OneNote, again, is a standalone application. You can always use OneNote for your planning outside of Teams, but it does really work quite well within Teams. Another thing that we can do is that we can head on over to our Insert tab here, and in our main space, oh, I still have my draw on, that's why. In our main space, we can, like you said, or like I've said, insert tables, files, pictures, links, audio, so all kinds of good stuff. The table, pretty self-explanatory. If you do like structure like me, you can kind of have some lists here and make a little table. So perhaps like this, contract templates. And then when we head to insert, we can actually insert files. So I can go ahead and grab a file from my computer or my OneDrive, and insert it right there. So in this way, we're actually adding live editable documents. So if this is a template people want to access, it can be right here. And you can imagine we start to populate this very full, rich binder of information, whether it be policies and procedures, whether it be last year's notebook of all the old stuff we used. We can start to kind of populate it like that. If we are somebody who prefers to use different modalities because of accessibility needs, we can also add information with an audio recording. So you might say, hi teammate, this contract template is great, hoping we can change this, this, and that. Feel free to make the edits and stick it back into the OneNote, thanks. And we can hit stop. And now we have an audio recording clip right there in our OneNote. So just some examples of things you can do. OneNote really is quite accessible, or supports accessibility really well. We also have Dictate built right in, which means that as I dictate, I'm going to have that speech to text feature, and it's going to type my words directly on the screen. And there we go. So this is a little bit of OneNote. You can start to imagine how you might use this for planning. I'm going to get out of our OneNote here and go back on into our team. So again, just a reminder, we were in a general channel. We were up in this WeSpace menu, this customizable menu, and we took a look at adding a OneNote, how we might use OneNote within Teams. And the way that we got this here was simply by clicking on the Add a Tab button. When we select Add a Tab, you're going to see all of our Office 365 options. So in this case, we added a OneNote. I clicked OneNote and it said, which one do you want to add? And I clicked on that one, or I could create a new one from scratch. In some instances, we might also be using other applications. So you'll see there's a whole bunch of applications here. Salesforce is in here. Mural is really great for ideas, or Lucidchart for sort of whiteboarding sticky notes. If you have promotional videos on YouTube, you name it, you can add that in. So again, that was simply by clicking on the tab button and adding a tab. Okay. The next thing we're going to take a look at is our other tab here, which is our work back schedule. And what I've done here is actually added in a planner application. So I went ahead and I clicked the plus sign. I found Planner, which is an Office app, and I've added that in. And Planner, just a quick demo, because this could take a whole day to share with you. There's lots of great stuff here, but it lets us basically create task lists and bucket our tasks together. So I might say add a task. Oops. The task name is going to be contract template. I can set a due date. I say I need that by Tuesday next week. I can assign it to anybody in my team. Multiple people in my team. Whoops. And I can add a task. And so now that task has been added. I can add buckets, which will let me bucket tasks together. And then I can view our task either in chart format, so we have one task left before go time, or in schedule format. I can see what the due dates are, and we can color code this to see who they're scheduled to, and we can group them by different buckets. So are they assigned? Are they in progress? Are they due? When are they due? Etc. So this lets us create a nice board of tasks within our team. So Planner is awesome. There's a lot to say about it. I welcome you to poke around, do a quick search on how you might use Planner. I can't go into too much more today. Across the top again, so look, we looked at OneNote, we looked at Planner, we looked at how, again, we're integrating all these other pieces of Office 365 directly into our team space. Files, pretty self-explanatory. This is a great opportunity to post files that you need to work on together. In this instance, I have an Excel document here for our budget for the event. This becomes a collaborative document. It means that we can have a conversation going live while we work on this. I can once again tag folks as I'm working. Can you meet now? And we can see, if Irvin's available, so we can go through this together as we work through our budget here. So we're just really working in Excel, which means that this version is going to always update. So folks can come in, we can make changes. Full disclaimer, there is version history, so don't worry, you can go back and find things if you don't like the changes that were made. But Teams is really meant to be collaborative. The intention is we're all here working together. So we can have multiple authors here at the same time. We can go ahead and click Meet Now, and we can actually meet right now about this document. You'll see there I am again, and we can talk through this document in our channel here. So that's just another example. So again, in our Files tab here, what we've done is we've simply clicked Upload and either brought in files or folders from our computer, or we can click on New, and we can start documents right here in our Teams space. So quite simple to do that as well. And then back to the beginning was our posts, our main section here. A lot of Teams open at the moment. There we go. So our posts, our files are going to automatically be there for each channel, which is a nice way of staying organized. So realistically, my budget here should probably be in our files section, and you'll see that it is. I have last year's budget, I have this year's budget. I've made a comment to say that I've uploaded both. I've tagged Elwood to compile some new expenses. And everybody knows that when we are in the financials channel, it's here that we can find our financial files. When we are in our sponsorship file or channel, which is locked, it would be here that we could find our sponsorship information. So it's a nice way of staying organized. Now, all that, I'm actually going to stop there. Let me just double check some questions here. Okay, so I will go through these maybe at the end. These are all quick answers. So stream is video sharing. The OneDrive answer, you are actually making a copy, so the one will always stay in your personal OneDrive, and then the one you put in the team becomes the collaborative one, if that makes sense as a quick answer. But we will go through some of those more technical things. Also, some of these questions, like I said, pretty simple, quick little answers that we can find as a group after. I think that's all I wanted to show you in terms of the planning piece. And we're going to quickly, with our last 20 minutes here, go on into what a live event team might look like. And then I'm actually going to show you how to make one from scratch. So this is what I've created as a live event space. Again, we have our channels, we have a custom We space, and we have our posts. So what I've done here, and what's fantastic about Teams, is that we're not just creating a space for live video. We're creating a collaborative community, which means that the conference might not be for another 2 months, but we're starting early. We're getting people excited. We're asking questions. We can run trivia. We can run contests. We can tease speakers as they become solidified. We can also allow our speakers and our members or attendees into this space early so that they can start to compile some questions or some big ticket issues they want to address. There's so much we can do before, and then obviously after the event as well. It lets us keep up this community where we can have folks getting excited for next year. We can have folks sharing files and research and information on the topics we've covered. So it's a really nice way. We're seeing some universities use this for things like residences going back to school, where they may or may not physically be there, but we want them to have sort of a collaborative space for residences, for fitness, for all kinds of communities at the university level. So what we've done here is in our general channel for our live event is, again, made an announcement, and we can customize the background. You can use logos, all kinds of stuff with some general information. So as soon as somebody is added to this space, they'll be able to see this, and we can of course add them after we've set up our space. We've also posted some things. I've taken random websites from UT here and said, you know, sign up for breakout sessions. We've posted the link. We're giving people info, so that's great. I've also gone ahead and added, you'll see there's 3 different tabs up here, one of which, where if you take a look at our welcome space, it says to go ahead and look at About Teams. So if you have any difficulty navigating Teams or you're not really sure, I've put a resource here for our attendees so that they know what everything does. I can also share this with you as well. I've also posted our event site. So, and this one's, again, it's not going to load because we're on the web. So the web inside the web struggles. But typically this would be our event website here. Folks would be able to go in and register or get more information. I've also added an attendee feedback survey so they can complete this after the event, or we can add all kinds of different surveys. You can change these buttons, these tabs as you go. And this form is actually using an application called Microsoft Forms, which is incredibly easy to do. Again, a standalone Office application that intentionally integrates really simply into Teams. So everybody will be able to submit this. And even though it looks like they're seeing the same thing, it's custom to them. So we could have that there. Again, we would have our files. We could put, we have our education Teams file, our attendee feedback survey is here. And we have our posts. Now, what we've done in this scenario is we have 2 open channels for Keynote. So Keynote Day 1, Keynote Day 2. This would where we would be able to update files. The speaker could post announcements. We could pre-post speaker bios, whatever it might be. We could ask our speakers as part of their contracts to potentially post something, a bit of a teaser a week in advance to sort of get excited and say what we're going to be talking about. And these are going to be open because everybody can join. We also have an open Q&A channel about conference details. So folks have said, I registered, but I'd like to change sessions, or I'm having difficulty with whatever. We can use this space. What's nice is that we can assign folks on our team to check on this periodically. So we can have a number of voices making sure that all questions are answered. And just like we're seeing in today's call, our attendees who have experience can actually provide answers to our attendees who might be new to the event. So we can sort of see this nice collaborative assistance start to happen here. What I've also chosen to do, and again, there is no right or wrong way to do this. This is completely an example, but I have created private channels for our breakouts. So we have a locked channels here. And in that case, once somebody has registered, we can go in maybe once a week and add those registrants to a locked specific space. And that would be simply by clicking on the ellipses and adding members. And in this space, like I said, we can have our speakers come on, we can have them present, little tidbits of info. And then we also have it, remember that the call will start in this channel at 5 minutes to the hour. You'll be able to join the call then. So we can kind of have, maybe we assign a speaker and we assign an admin to each channel to support that space. But again, we can post our files here. The recordings for each of these sessions will then live in each dedicated channel, which is fantastic, keeps things nice and organized. So this is, again, just how you might set up your space. You have a ton of freedom to do all kinds of things here. Like I said, you can customize this space. We can have other forms, other sites, other documents, all pinned up at the top, all accessible within Teams. I'm going to go ahead and start from the very beginning, because I've gone backwards here, and show you how to make this all happen. Some of you may already know this, but in your Teams tab on the left here, you have that button to join or create a team. Now, I will say a disclaimer that your organization and many organizations are in different stages of allowing this to happen. So at the moment, and we will clarify in the questions portion, I believe there is a bit of a process for you to actually be able to create your own team spaces, but you certainly can. There's just a couple different steps to go through. And just so you can see, this is what you do have available when you are allowed to make your space or have somebody support you in making one. Most of the time, we're using these in education. For events, the answer is to use other. It is really the most empty template, lets you do anything. So this is where we went ahead and added our title. So we'll do this one. We can add a description, we can make it private or public so anybody can join, or we can say it's locked down to people who register. We can also create a team using a template. If you did the same event last year and you loved your team, you can just go ahead and use an existing template to do it again. We can hit next. We can either add members or not add members just yet and do that later, so we'll hit skip. And that is what it looks like right off the bat. You have a nice empty space. One general channel will always be there with posts and files. And from here, We can do all kinds of wonderful things. Now, with our last few minutes, I want to speak about that synchronous opportunity. So synchronous meetings, synchronous presentations, because I know that outside of this great collaborative space, a big part of our events are the live piece. So here's how we're going to do that. We're going to head over to the calendar button. And here is where we can host meetings, plain and simple. So what we did today, the reason that we were on a call together, is because we scheduled the meeting and we all clicked into the meeting and here we are. And that's what I'm going to show you right off the bat. It's as simple as finding a date. So we'll jump on over to, sure, this date, and we'll click a square. Sorry, that was kind of fast. I'll do that again. We can either click new meeting or we can just click on the calendar. Here we're gonna title this. So Conference 2020. We can add required attendees if we'd like. So this would only be kind of our internal planning team, perhaps. Or we can add a channel. Now this is really what we'd like to do for our attendees. So for our conference live event, perhaps this is Keynote Day 1. And Keynote Day 1 is actually, of course, going to be held in our channel for Keynote Day 1. We can then add details on who's speaking. We can add all kinds of great stuff here, links. We can customize the time, and we're going to hit send. Now, what is that has done is it's obviously putting it in our calendars right here, and it's going to put it in the calendars of everybody in that channel. So they're going to see it in their calendar and get a notification as well. But it's also going to show up in our conference, Keynote Day 1, and there's that meeting. Now, when I click onto that, I can click from here or I can click from the calendar. A couple things have changed. So I now see meeting options, which wasn't there before. So as an organizer, I would go into meeting options. It opens in a new browser window here, and I can do some customization. So who can present? Only me, or only specific people. So I can say me. This is because I'm doing this online again. I can say me or, the presenter. So it really limits this. And we can also change this once it starts. So it's a good idea to say only me if I'm the person opening up the call, and then giving access to folks after. And we can customize who can bypass the lobby. So if this is a public facing event outside of your organization, we can say that I don't want people to just jump on the call. And there are actually some fantastic new features that are rolling out over the summer for the back to school year that even customize this even more. So we're going to see things like specific breakout rooms, more features around who can access the lobby, who can join the call automatically. So there's a lot of strong event features coming. So I'm going to hit save for now, and we'll head on back to our team here. The other features that we now see are, of course, join and their meeting link. What is awesome about this is I can simply go ahead and grab this link, copy the link, and now I can post this anywhere. So if I am a faculty member who's presenting and I want to post this on my blog, if I want to post this on Moodle or D2L or Canvas or any learning management tool, I can go ahead and post it there. I can post it on Facebook pages, wherever we want. This will get you to this meeting. So you can go ahead and do that, which is fantastic. Once again, when we join the call, it's going to look a whole lot like the call we were just on. There's your options here. We can share our screen by clicking on this button if we'd like, so we can then open up any PowerPoint. So I have a random example here. This is a K-12 example. I don't even think there's anything in this. We can start recording. We can show our meeting notes, all kinds of good stuff. Our participants will be able to raise their hands. Our participants will be able to use the chat. And this really is a more collaborative call space as well. So just like today, you can all come off mute if you really wanted to. You could chat your questions away and they are automatically visible to everybody. So this is typically more for a smaller group that either knows each other or, maybe it's, again, residents, students, or people who are willingly or want to be part of this this community and this call. If we want to do something a little bit more formal, the answer to that is Teams Live Event. So I'm going to hang up our little keynote here. So you'll see that was our keynote that we just hosted. We didn't hit record, I don't think, but otherwise it would have recorded right there. If we wanted to be a little bit more formal, what we would do is we would go over to our calendar, and in the same way we just hosted that event, what we could do is now click, I'll go somewhere else over here. We're going to hit live event instead of meeting. Live event is a bit more formal. Whereas a meeting only gives us the capacity to have 300 people, a live event gives us the capacity to have, I want to say 15,000. It was 10,000. I think it's gone up. And it does give us a bit more ability to sort of produce formal webinars, for example. So here I could title this Keynote Day 2. I could then invite presenters. So sure, that's going to be our presenter. I'm going to be the producer, giving me behind the scene access to send things live, to manage the Q&A, to decide who gets to speak when. You'll get a producer dashboard. Then we customize this information as we see fit, and we hit next. Now, live event permissions can be organization-wide, which means they have to sign into Teams. They have to be part of your U of T tenant, or public-facing so that anybody can join. The next thing, it says, how will you produce your live event? If you are just going to use Teams, so Teams is going to be my webcam, my screen, my presenters, we're just going to use Teams, you can click that. If you are familiar with other presentation tools, so if you're using, a whole studio, if you'd like, then you can deselect this and it'll give you the option to use other things if your computer is set up with other applications. When we hit schedule, this is what happens, a little bit different. So automatically, this is going to send an email out to your presenters. So Elwood is going to get a link that's specific as a presenter. Everybody else, there is nobody else who's going to get this link until we select Get Attendee Link. So the difference here is that a meeting, as we did previously, is going to automatically go out to anybody in that channel. In this case, this is our join as producer or presenter. So this is the link for our presenter and me. This is the link we want to publicize. So I'm going to hit copy this link. And now that's the one I'm going to go over here to our team, to our day 2. I'm going to click on the A. I'm going to post a nice big announcement. I'll even change the background illustration because it's all very exciting. And I'm going to say Keynote Live link, and we can post it right here. We could obviously make that smaller if we wanted to. We could say join here. And that would be our link, or you could hyperlink something else. So I'm just trying to show you that. We could insert a link. So now that is actually the link itself instead of this long one. Join here. We can make it very exciting, very bold, very large if we wanted to. So that's something we could do. So that is going to actually take all attendees to the live event, which is going to look a little bit different than a meeting, because it's going, for an attendee, it's going to look very similar. They will have a Q&A instead of a chat. So just like you see today, I'll go ahead and jump in here. Oh, I can't do this because I'm on the web, unfortunately. Gonna look really similar, like I said. Instead of the chat, which you see on the right-hand side, they're gonna see a Q&A bar. The Q&A is nice because all the questions will pump into to any admin or producers on the back end, and then you can choose whether or not those go public and then answer the questions. It also will not let everybody on the call see who else is on the call. It really typically looks like your more traditional webinar type of platform. So there's lots more to be learned about live events. Again, that is something that we have galores of courses on that you can totally go and check out. And with my last 5 minutes here, I know I have probably blown your minds. There's been a lot of different things we've touched on. I'm going to do a really high-level recap for us here. So we are going to start way back at the beginning. This is Microsoft Teams. In Microsoft Teams, we have a number of different communities we can be a part of. As planners of many fantastic events, we might create a team to plan our events. When we're working inside of Teams, we have our navigation menu on the left-hand side called the Me space. Next to that, we have divisions of our work. So these are called channels. They're customizable. We can add them by clicking on the ellipses next to our team name, which will also take us to the settings page and let us manage members, channels, and all kinds of good stuff. All of our channels will give us a menu at the top called the We space. Within any channel, we can customize what we see up at the top here. All of our channels will also give us an area for files. Here we can upload any files necessary or relevant to that particular channel. We can also, in the We space, customize what is most important by adding a tab using this plus icon over on the right. When we add a tab, we can add things from Microsoft, we can add websites, or we can add a number of other applications. These are things that we're going to check back with often. In some instances, we might choose to use a OneNote notebook. In this case, a OneNote notebook will let us add all kinds of files. It'll let us dictate, audio record, add photos, ink and annotate, brainstorm using it as a whiteboard feature, and it'll let us really create sort of a collaborative binder of content. So really the substance of what we're working on. As we go through our channels, you'll see that we can also make some of them private, which means only a few individuals will be allowed into that space because that information may only be privy to a few folks. Within our planning team, of course, we're going to want to have meetings. We can plan those meetings using our calendar tool. We can also then record the meetings and have them visible right here. In addition, we can have meeting notes, which will automatically publish up to the top. If we gather all of our meetings in one place, we'll have a nice list of meeting notes and a collection of recorded meetings. One thing to add to this is that our recorded meetings are hosted in Microsoft Stream. Microsoft Stream is Microsoft's video management tool, which will let you do a number of fantastic things, including add automatic transcripts, closed captioning, and transcripts in different languages. So it really supports a lot of our accessibility policies and lets us make those customizations. So you'll see it probably won't have them here. I haven't turned them on yet. So that was our meeting. We didn't do or say much, but if I go ahead and open it in Microsoft Stream, again, this is kind of a side tangent from today, but there's lots to learn here. We can click on the ellipses again, and we're going to go to video details. Here I can select a language. So I let them know that I'm speaking English. I'm going to auto-generate a caption file, and I can even upload a subtitle file. When I've applied those, you'll notice I have a transcript tab here, and it's just working on getting the transcript in order for me. And then I can also turn on closed captioning once my transcript has been ready. So this is Stream. It's its own application accessible from office.com. I wasn't really going to go into that today, but I do feel like it's an important part of our event organization, allowing people to go back in and rewatch these sessions with automatic transcripts and captioning. That is our sort of planning piece. The other one we went over was when we're ready to go, we're going to host a live event. We're going to create the space that lets our attendees collaborate before and after the main event, really making this something more of a community, less of a one-time only presentation. And here we can have, again, private channels for breakouts, Q&A sections. We can include things like feedback forms and surveys, websites, PDFs. We can see how we can add a lot of information here. We can have our speakers engage with our community by posting what they're going to be talking about, asking questions, etc. So, and of course, we can host meetings, traditional meetings, or live events. within these spaces. Alrighty, that brings me exactly to 11:30. I know that was a lot of information. I can see that there are many questions in the chat. So I can go ahead and read through these momentarily. Tom, I don't know if you want to pass it on back to you.
I've pulled a few out.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just getting this little feedback. One of the ones that folks asked in the chat that was pretty important that I thought to folks was creating a Microsoft team. And that's a request that needs to go through ACE. So you just need to send an email to ACE for that one, and folks can create a team.
Tom, there were a couple of U of T specific things I just wanted to touch on really quickly.
Yeah.
While we're on the topic, if that's okay. So like he said, you do need to request a team via ACT, which is the Academic and Collaborative Technologies Group. You can email need.team@utoronto.ca. And they'll create a new team for you ASAP, and they're really fast. So if it's urgent, they'll probably get it done within a couple of hours. The other thing I wanted to mention really quickly is for add-ins. So Renee was great and showed us Planner. All Microsoft add-ins for Teams are already approved. But if you want to use an external add-in like Salesforce, it has to go through the information security process. So you have to submit a ticket through the Enterprise Service Center. And then it's added to a list, and it has to undergo a risk review to make sure that the information we're sharing with that add-in is appropriate for the university. And then Jennifer Vance from ACE is in this call, which is great because she's been answering a lot of questions about Microsoft Live events, which do have to be requested via ACE. And then the last thing I just wanted to touch on quickly is that students don't have the same licenses, Microsoft licenses, as faculty and staff. And because of that, students can't request to create new teams. So if you're doing a project that involves a lot of students, a staff or faculty member just needs to make sure that they're requesting the team be created. And those are just my 4 points. That's it.
Nini had a great question from Faculty of Architecture, and was, can you end a meeting for everyone?
Yes, you can. So it would be clicking on that ellipses again, because everything good hides behind there. And there actually is an end meeting option. It literally just says end meeting, and it kicks everybody out. The other thing that I am actually going to do, I realize you can probably still see my screen, but I'm just going to quickly show you some updates. I think that some of your questions might be answered here. This just came out last week, and I'm very excited about it. But these are things that we are seeing coming out. So attendance reports, if that's something you're keen on. If somebody removes an anonymous user, they cannot rejoin. We can now see 49 people, well, not now, sorry, these are, you'll see that I have dates coming out. 49 people at once. Breakout rooms are coming in the fall. We're increasing the meeting attendee limit to 300. And we'll see there's a couple different IT settings here. So you can set the default role of meeting attendee, so everyone's an attendee. What else was in here? Some of the stuff is more teaching and learning, but the breakout piece I think is huge, and the setting folks as attendees are also coming out as well.
I have a question. Captioning for Microsoft Live events. I know it's currently a function for a team event or a team meeting, so that could easily be turned on for a person today in this event, but on a Microsoft Live event, what about captioning?
Yes, great question. So captioning does certainly exist. I actually feel that there's some accessibility features I should have also mentioned, but off the top of my head, I don't remember if it's automatically on or if there's a switch you got to toggle. I can find you that answer, though. It's probably just a quick search, but most certainly it exists for live events. I'll have to find it for you. I'm just going to paste the link of that, what I just showed on the screen right there. The other resource I'm going to share is a site called education.microsoft.com, which is going to have some answers for you as well. But go ahead with more questions. I'm all ears.
Perfect. I see Franco has his hand raised. Franco, do you have a question? Oh, he has dropped his hand.
Didn't know you had his hand raised, perhaps. So I just posted a link in there. Now, bear with me. What this link is really educator focused. It does have a number of resources. I don't think am I sharing my screen anymore? I don't even remember. Here we go. So you will see when you go to courses that there's lots of training here. My recommendation would just be to simply go to Teams and start. Now, this is probably going to give you Teams sort of as a classroom environment, but this piece on collaborating faster with Teams for higher education is a great course that really just gives you the basic rundown if you're not familiar with Teams. Otherwise, there are a ton of resources you can just do a quick search for that will help you with live events, with all kinds of stuff.
Perfect. And Jennifer Vance just posted something in the chat, which is great news from ACE, is that captioning is available for Microsoft Live Events, but for some reason it was just turned off, and they're looking on a fix for that. So there might have been some past difficulties for captioning with folks with Microsoft Live Events through ACE, but there is a fix quickly coming. So that is great news. Thank you, Jennifer.
Awesome. And I'm trying to look at some of these other questions here. I also wanted to point out for, and I should have done this, for English language learners or for folks that are just collaborating in multilingual teams, Microsoft Teams has the ability to translate text in line. So what we could do is simply click on the ellipses here and hit translate. And in this case, my settings are set to English, so it's translating from English to English, which doesn't really show much, but you can have it translate into whatever language your team is set to, or if it's been written in another language, which is really nice as well.
Excellent. Kathleen, there's a question for you. I'm not sure. It's from Dina. It says, can Teams be used with incoming students starting in September 2020 rather than current students?
So yes, my recommendation for that, and Renee can correct me if she knows more about this, is you can add them to Teams as guests and they'll be able to access the team that way. And when you add them as a guest, they'll get an email. Just add whatever email address they're currently using. And then they should get an email and they'll be able to register for an account that could use Teams and access the team that way.
Yeah, exactly. There's a couple different ways. So if they have Office 365, if they have Teams with another organization, then they'll be able to sign in and out of their team and be shown the U of T teams that they might be part of. If they don't have any access at all, then they'll just use their email address, and you'll be kind of inviting them into the space as like a one-time only or one team only access. So they obviously have nothing else to look at. But yes, guests can definitely be added.
Perfect. I'm just checking the chat to see if there's any more questions, but I think that might be all of the ones that have come in. I'll just give folks a few more moments to put any last questions in.
Something that's come up a lot in general, and it's coming up in this call, is people who are experiencing issues with connectivity during Teams calls. And from a U of T perspective, a really common issue that we're seeing is that people are participating in Teams calls while they're still connected to the U of T VPN, which is what a lot of us use to connect the network shared files. And you may also be connected to your work computer through remote desktop since we're all working from home. You do not need to be connected to the VPN or remote desktop to use Teams and participate in a call. So if you absolutely don't need to be on VPN or remote desktop, don't be, because it really disrupts the connectivity of your call. And sometimes I'll be connected to VPN and I won't realize it. And I'll be like, what's wrong with my connectivity? But it's because I always forget that I'm connected to the VPN. So make sure it's turned off because that's a very common issue with Teams connectivity.
And for people like myself who don't have a work computer that I've taken home, so I'm using my personal computer, I would always recommend using the web app of Teams when you are on a Teams call, rather than trying to RDP into your work computer to access Teams, because that is never happy. So I think that's it for questions, unless anyone has any more.
I just added my email address in the chat for anybody who is keen for additional training over the summer for back to school time, or if your department is looking for training on setting up courses and sort of student use case, teacher student workflow, or instructor student workflow. There's my email. Please feel free to reach out if you need anything else. I know that today was fast and furious, but there's so many pieces. I just hope that some part of it resonated with you. And then if you need anything else, please don't hesitate to ask.
And I also, and again, thanks so much, Tom and Renee, for having me today. I did add a link to EASY's, which is Enterprise Applications and Solutions Integration, the unit that I work with at U of T. We do have a page for Teams that has some U of T specific resources and documentation. And I also run a series called Connect and Learn. Usually we have 1 or 2 sessions a week. And they're just intended as they're usually a 15-minute presentation followed by a discussion period, and they just kind of give people the opportunity to drop in at lunch and learn about a specific topic, often related to Office 365 products. So I posted the link, which is uoft.me/connectandlearn, and you can find recordings from past sessions there and see what's coming up.
Just answering a question. Perfect. Well, I think that's it for today for everyone. So I know this was very fast and furious, but hopefully it sort of gave you a good idea of what Teams can do, and will let you sort of go on your own and explore a little bit more and use those resources like Kathleen posted. A reminder for folks too is that LinkedIn Learning is actually another great place to go to for things as well. So I would always recommend that too if you've got a specific problem you're trying to figure out. So just I want to say before we conclude the call today, I just want to thank Kathleen for coming in so wonderfully answering questions all throughout the talk today. Thank you so much. Renee, thank you very much, and thank you to the entire Microsoft team, or the Microsoft Canada team, for making this happen today for us. I know it was a request out of the blue, but you guys jumped in, and I really appreciate it, so thank you. I just want to also thank all the committee members who helped put on this event today. Thank you so much. We are going to be taking next week off from the main event, given the short week. So no main event next week, but we will be back in July with our 5th and final edition. So please watch the Teams chat and your email for the invite for our 5th and final talk this summer. But for now, have a great day and a wonderful long weekend for those starting early. And of course, happy Canada Day to everyone.